Do you have a weakness in your training and you're really struggling to get that weakness a little bit better? We can apply the 3-3-3 method to any weakness and see instant improvement, or at least the progression of that weakness and the ability to become better. Hi, I'm Tyler, and we're going to run through what I believe is the simplest way to attack any weakness head on. 3-3-3 method is quite simple. Firstly, we're looking at finding a weakness. One of the best ways I like to find weakness is through competition. I believe in the phrase compete and find what's weak. This allows us to find a weakness due to fatigue, maybe mid-workout or when you're under a little bit of stress, with intensity, pushing yourself really hard, harder than you ever have before, and then that weakness shows itself at the time that you probably don't want it to. And then finally, through failure, an inability to perform an exercise to the standard that you require for whatever the workout being. CrossFit is interesting because it is a sport that combines so many modalities into one. You are always going to seem to find that weakness that's going to let you down in a competition sense. So what do we do about that? Well, we apply the 3-3-3 method, and it's a little method that I've coined and placed in my training and seen some massive improvements. Now, you might be asking, what is the 3-3-3 method? Well, it is 3 days, 3 exercises, and 3 sets. Now, I know you probably can't really see that, but it's just for my reference, so don't stress. So 3 days, 3 exercises, and 3 sets. It's as simple as that. The idea behind the 3-3-3 method is that by being more persistent with your weakness, you have the ability to improve in a vaster and faster state. Of course, one of the things you want to keep in mind is volume and the ability to perform too many reps or too many sets on a particular muscle group, tendon, or ligament, which is going to cause an overuse injury, which we don't want. So there's going to be some strategies around how we can apply or best perform this method without hurting ourselves, and in fact, improving our progression, improving our technique, improving our skill in the movement. Now, let's jump into how we first, once we've identified a movement, how we kind of break it down. So I've got this format here, which is modality, weakness, plan, process, and persistence. That's my 3 Ps for performance. So in this case, I identified months ago that I had a weakness in horizontal pull and push strength. So if you don't know what horizontal pull and push strength is, it is essentially your bench press and your row. So I found I was a lot weaker than other athletes in those movements. Now I say months ago, I mean maybe just over a year ago. So it is quite a few days ago that I found this weakness. But in this case, I found that the bench press was my weak movement. So I identified pushing strength, specifically the bench press itself. Now, what was my plan? That's going to be the key point. You need to have a plan. If we don't have a plan, we're just kind of aimlessly swinging our dick around and hoping for the best. We don't want that. The other thing is that if it's 3 or 4 weeks before a competition and you're addressing this weakness, you've probably waited too long and you deserve to get caught out. Once again, compete and find what's weak. You can't expect to progress on a strength movement in 3 to 4 weeks. At that point, you deserve to fail, and I hope you do, just so that you can find out that you are not as good as you think you are, and then you can apply the 3-3-3 method. So you've identified the bench press is your weakness. You've got plenty of time, let's say a couple of months before the big competition happens. And what we're going to do is plan. The first thing you must plan is performing your horizontal pull and push 3 days a week. So figure that out in your schedule. Now keep in mind, let's say that I do my CrossFit workout a day or my online programming, and there is a allocated bench press day. That would count as one of your sessions. You're not doing 3 additional sessions, you're doing 3 sessions per week for that specific modality. So if you've already got a day planned out, or you already have the session in your actual programming, don't add an extra session to do 4 days a week. Just make sure that you keep that in mind when you are creating your plan. So you've already got a bench press day, for example, but you just do 2 days a week. But in this case, we don't do any bench for some reason in our program because our program isn't fully balanced and it isn't constantly varied. So we need to program 3 days per week. Other than that, looking at the process. So where are some areas that you notice that you struggle at in the bench press? Is it controlling that position on the way down? Is it the pause at the bottom? Is it the press back up? Are you struggling to lock the elbows? You'll figure that out as you go, and obviously you're going to observe which area you struggle with, or your coach will at least allow you, give you some insight of, okay, this is where you need to work on, this is what we need to do to improve. You've got that information. In this case, I've decided pause and tempo work as well as some hypertrophy. I felt like that the muscles weren't developed enough in my particular area, and getting off the chest was actually quite a struggle. That if I ever got onto the chest or I got stuck there, I wasn't getting out of it. So I needed to improve that area. Finally, persist. Is there anything that's going to slow you down on your journey for improvement? So, for example, I had a rotator cuff flare. It wasn't an injury, it was a flare, a bit of an aggravation that was going to slow me down. What did I do? I make sure that the program has added rotator cuff work and builds the muscle around the rotator cuff to make sure that it's not going to slow down the progress of the bench press. Of course, we're adding 3 days per week into our program. And if we've got a pre-existing injury, that might be an issue that you need to make sure you refine out. So you've identified your modality, you've made sure you found the weak point, you're looking at adding a plan, you've got a process, and now we're ready to persist. Where do you go from there? You create your program. So once again, if we look back at the 3-3-3 method, it is 3 days, which we understand already, 3 exercises, which is something you're going to keep in mind. So no more, no less, 3 exercises, and then 3 sets per exercise. So you've got your foundation set. You just need to pick 3 exercises on the 3 days you are doing it, and then make sure that they all have 3 sets, which is adequate volume. So essentially you're doing 9 sets per session, and it's going to be 27 sets per week, which can seem like quite a lot, but keeping in mind one of those exercises is an auxiliary exercise, and it is going to be very low drag on your body and low intensity. It's going to be something that's going to make sure that we're bolstering those weak points. If we know we've got a niggle or a pain in our elbow, our shoulder, maybe in our wrists, they struggle a little bit, that's the area you're going to attack with your auxiliary exercise. So let's take a look at the program that I've pre-written for this little video, just to give you an idea of what it will look like. When it comes to the program, what we're really looking at is making sure that we maximize the simplicity of the program without making it too complex for the user. So in this case, we've got a very simple process. We're looking at our main lift, our secondary lift, and our auxiliary lift. With these lifts, guys, what the goal is the main lift is obviously going to benefit the weakest muscle group, which for me is going to be the bench press. The secondary lift is working on any antagonist or supporting muscle groups. So in this case, it's going to be rowing and our upper back. And then the auxiliary lift is going to work on our persist category, which is going to be rehabbing my shoulder. When we look at the weeks themselves, it's pretty straightforward. We've got our main lifts, our secondary lifts, and our auxiliary lift weeks. I've made our progression for the movements super simple. On all the main lifts, week 1, we'll do 7 reps at an RPE 7. Week 2, 5 reps at an RPE 8. Week 3, 3 reps at an RPE 9, and then week 4 will be 1 rep at an RPE 10. You might be asking me, Ty, how many sets are there? And it's straightforward. It's in the 3-3-3 method. 3 days, 3 exercises, 3 sets. So you don't even need to write the sets down. You just know that every exercise is going to have 3 sets. It's going to make things a little bit easier. Let's get back into the program. So coming to our secondary lifts, we're going to go 12, 10, 8, and then 6 over our 4 weeks with an RPE 8 on week 1 and 2 and an RPE 9 on week 3 and 4. And then finally, our auxiliary lifts. We're going to stay at 15 reps for all 4 weeks, but our RPE just goes up by 1. On week 4, we're looking at hitting a RPE 10, or pretty much going to technical failure on those lifts. Because those lifts are pretty simple, it's not going to hurt you, it's not going to be too challenging, but it's going to be a great way to progress these simple movements to make sure that we get rid of that weakness. Now you can do this with any variation in any movement. You can obviously choose your own rep scheme, you can choose the different weights and the format, and that's all up to you. The pretty big point that I want to get across and the simplicity of the program is we got 3 days, 3 exercises, and 3 sets. We want to make sure we find what's our weakness, identify the hole, plan, process, and persist. And literally it's as simple as that. Like, that's probably one of the easiest ways that I've found working through my weaknesses quickly in a way that's not too complex and making sure that we are hitting the right muscle groups, the right weak points, and getting ourselves over that hump, over that sticking point, and being able to improve in that movement to make our overall fitness better. Key points I want you to take away: 3 days, 3 exercises, 3 sets. Making sure you find what's weak, identify the hole, plan, process, and persist. And then finally, and the best thing I think you guys should take home from this video: plan, process, persist. The persistence is key. If you have somewhere that's going to give out, something that's going to let you down, double down on that. That if you have a current program running, you're not adding additional volume to that program. So if your class program already has bench press on a Friday, you do not add 3 additional bench presses through the week. You only add 2. It's 3 exercises, 3 sets, 3 days in total. We're not adding extra stuff to our concurrent program. If you found this video helpful in any way, shape, or form, make sure you like the video itself. I'm glad you guys clicked on the channel and watched this. There is more content on programming and CrossFit based content coming out shortly whenever I have the ability to create it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you on the next one.